And I give the floor to the representative of Lebanon for his statement.
Mr. President, at the outset, I thank you for convening this emergency session at the request of the French Republic, supported by the United Kingdom, Greece, Denmark, Latvia, and the Kingdom of Bahrain. I also thank Ms. Di Carlo, Mr. Lacroix, Mr. Fletcher, and Ms. Harfouch for the briefings they provided. Mr. President, we meet today at a moment when Lebanon finds itself trapped in a war that it did not choose between Israel and Hezbollah. Israel, which shows no respect for the laws of war and persists in its attacks on Lebanon, and Hezbollah, whose military and security activities have been banned and deemed illegal by the Council of Ministers. Once again, we are confronted with a painful reality that serves neither Lebanon nor the Lebanese people, who are facing death, devastation, and displacement. The number of Lebanese displaced has reached nearly 1 million, many of whom without shelters befitting human dignity. Every morning, we wake up to new casualties among innocent people, including women and children, and to warnings to evacuate entire areas and destruction of both private and public property. This creates extremely difficult conditions for the Lebanese government, which is striving to put Lebanon back on the path of recovery and reform and to rebuild its institutions. Mr. President, we wish to highlight that the Lebanese government has clearly expressed its full rejection and condemnation of the rocket attack claimed by Hezbollah on the 2nd of March. As we informed you in our letter on that same day, our government affirmed that this attack contradicts its decisions regarding the exclusive authority of the Lebanese state over matters of war and peace, and contradicts the principle of refusing to drag Lebanon into the ongoing regional war. This act also constitutes a violation of the cabinet's resolutions and aims at undermining the credibility of the Lebanese state. Mr. President, in our modern history, no Lebanese government has demonstrated this level of courage and determination to reclaim the state authority, to restrict weapons to legitimate state institutions, and to extend the state's control exclusively through its own forces over all Lebanese territory, in implementation of the Ta'if Agreement, which stipulated the dissolution of all Lebanese and non-Lebanese militias and the handover of their weapons to the Lebanese state, and to extend the state authority over all its territories, and in implementation of relevant international resolutions, including 1701, and an implementation of the government's ministerial declaration and related decisions, particularly the decision adopted on the 5th of August 2025. We recall that on the 2nd of March, the government issued a decision requiring the immediate prohibition of all Hezbollah military and security activities, deeming them illegal and compelling Hezbollah to hand over its weapons to the Lebanese state and to confine its work exclusively to political activity within constitutional and legal frameworks. On the 5th of March, the Lebanese government adopted an additional decision tasking the security institutions with verifying the presence of members of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard in Lebanon and deporting them immediately upon identification. Another decision was issued requiring prior authorization for issuing entry visas to Iranian nationals seeking to visit Lebanon. Mr. President, we will not accept a return to the past. The Lebanese people do not want war, and the Lebanese government is moving forward in implementing its decisions and will not backtrack. However, our priority today is to stop this war, to protect our country and ensure the security and safety of our people. It is our right to live in peace and security in our homeland and our region. To this end, the Lebanese government has expressed its readiness to enter into negotiations with Israel under international auspices with civilian participation to settle all outstanding issues. The President of the Republic called on the international community 2 days ago to support him and to implement the initiative he announced, consisting of the following: establishing a full truce, including a complete halt to all Israeli ground, naval, and air attacks on Lebanon. Second, expediting the provision of essential logistical support to the Lebanese armed forces. And third, enabling the Lebanese armed forces to take control of areas of tension, confiscate all weapons found there, and seize Hezbollah's arms and depots and warehouses in accordance with the available information. Fourth, simultaneously, Lebanon and Israel would begin direct negotiations under international auspices to implement all of the above. Mr. President, in support of the Lebanese government's efforts, this esteemed council is called upon to compel Israel to implement Resolution 1701, to respect the cessation of hostilities, to withdraw fully to internationally recognized borders, to end its repeated violations and breaches of Lebanese sovereignty, to release Lebanese detainees, to seize its threats to Lebanon's territorial integrity and political independence within its internationally recognized borders. We reaffirm Lebanon's attachment to the follow-up mechanism established under the Cessation of Hostilities Declaration pursuant to Resolution 2790. We also reiterate Lebanon's commitment to the truce agreement signed with Israel on the 3rd of March 1949, which is in the interest of both parties. Mr. President, we must also reiterate our condemnation of Iran's deliberate and unjustified attacks targeting the Gulf Cooperation Council states, the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan, Iraq, and Syria. We express our full solidarity with these countries. We also condemn the attacks targeting Turkey, Azerbaijan, and Cyprus. We strongly denounce these reprehensible acts which Lebanon rejects unequivocally and without reservation. We also condemn the attacks against the UNIFIL from any source. We renew our gratitude to the UNIFIL, to the troop-contributing countries, and to all personnel serving within this force, especially those who lost their lives in Lebanon in service of international peace and security. We strongly condemn the targeting of the Ghanaian battalion headquarters and express full solidarity with Ghana and UNIFIL's command, wishing the injured a swift recovery. Finally, Mr. President, Lebanon is facing an extremely dangerous moment and a true humanitarian catastrophe. While we work tirelessly to alleviate the suffering of our people and meet their basic humanitarian needs, any support or assistance to help ease the burden of this crisis is welcome and greatly appreciated. We reiterate once again that Lebanon will not accept to be turned into an arena for settling scores. We will continue striving to lead our nation out of this ordeal stronger and more resilient. Thank you, President.
I thank the representative of Lebanon for the statement. I now give the floor to the representative of Israel.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I would like to congratulate the United States for taking the presidency for the month of March, and I also would like to thank the briefers. Mr. President, since the 2nd of March, Hezbollah has launched wave after wave of attacks against Israel. More than 880 rockets and missiles, more than 60 UAVs, more than 15 anti-tank guided missiles. Hezbollah itself has been clear about why, and I quote, to avenge the death of Ayatollah Khamenei, not to defend Lebanon, not to protect Lebanese citizens, but to serve the agenda of the Iranian regime. Just days ago, they vowed to fight to the last breath. As we sit here today, Israeli families are running to bomb shelters as Hezbollah launches new attacks toward our communities. That is the reality we face. That is why Israel is now operating in Lebanon, to stop this threat. Mr. President, to understand where we are today, we must look at what has happened since October 7th. For years, Hezbollah grew into one of the most powerful non-state armed organizations in the world. It began way back in the 80s, when Lebanon was in the middle of a civil war. But over time, it became something more dangerous, a proxy army built by Iran, funded by Iran, trained by Iran, armed by Iran. By 2024, Hezbollah had between 150,000 and 200,000 rockets and missiles. Think about that. The largest arsenal ever held by a non-state actor. Think about your countries. Most of your countries do not have the capacity of 200 missiles and rockets. A war machine built over decades with one purpose: Israel's destruction. After Hamas's October 7th attacks, Hezbollah opened a second front from Lebanon. For months, Israel's northern communities came under fire. Rockets, drones, missiles launched across the border. We responded. Israel responded with targeted operations against Hezbollah's command networks and military infrastructure. I want to remind you that during that operation, senior leadership was eliminated, including their leader, Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah, a terrorist with blood on his hands. Command structures were disrupted. Around 3,000 fighters from the Radwan force were taken off the battlefield. They lost roughly 80% of its rockets capability. The army Iran spent decades building, we broke it. But Hezbollah was not fully eliminated. We have to admit it. Instead of stepping back after the ceasefire, it rearmed, restocked, it rebuilt, and it did so with the help of the Iranian regime. During the first year after the ceasefire, Iran funneled more than $1 billion to Hezbollah. It continues to receive over $50 million every month to rebuild its military machine. Tehran funds it, Tehran arms it, Tehran directs it. Hezbollah pulled the trigger, but the Ayatollahs in Tehran pulled the strings. All of this in direct violation of Security Council Resolution 1701. Mr. President, that resolution required the area between the Blue Line and the Litani River to be free of Hezbollah weapons and terrorists. You all voted on this resolution. I want to show you this map, which shows launch sites used by Hezbollah to fire rockets, missiles, and drones toward Israel. You know, look where they are. All those dots are south of the Litani River. Hezbollah should not be there. And from these locations, on the first day of these attacks, Hezbollah launched missiles toward Israel. You know, one of the village here, the village of Bargoz, small village. We have the intel about it. When they send a missile from those areas, southern of the Litani, it takes 30 seconds for the missile to land in Israel, in the northern part of Israel. 30 seconds. Imagine for a minute that you are driving with your family in your car, and you hear the sirens, and you have 30 seconds. You have to stop the car, you have to look for a shelter, and you have to decide which child you take first to the shelter if you cannot carry all of them. 30 seconds, that's what it takes. Mr. President, since the ceasefire came into effect, Israel has submitted 929 enforcement requests asking the Lebanese armed forces to dismantle Hezbollah infrastructure, launch sites, weapons depots, underground bunkers. However, the efforts of the Lebanese armed forces were not sufficient. Sites that were identified were not dismantled. Sometimes they came there, they took the pictures, and that was it. And today Hezbollah continues to fire rockets at Israel from those same areas. Last August, the Lebanese government instructed its military to prepare a plan to disarm armed militias in the country. We welcomed that decision. It was a momentous step. We also commend the recent statements of Prime Minister Salam declaring Hezbollah's current military activity against Israel illegal. Those are the right words, but the reality on the ground tells a different story. So I ask the Lebanese government, if Hezbollah is being dismantled, where is the evidence? Where are the operations against their launch sites? Where are the seizures of their weapons? Where is your military? Ambassador Arafa, Lebanon now stands at a pivotal moment in its history. The time has come to decide, will Lebanon stick to declarations or actually act? Because the question before you is very simple. Who controls Lebanon? The Lebanese government or Hezbollah, acting on behalf of the Ayatollahs in Tehran? Lebanon has a national army of more than 72,000 soldiers. Mobilize them, train them, empower them with the authority and resources to assert the sovereignty of the Lebanese state. We support peaceful negotiations. You know that. We spoke before the last operation. But today, as we speak, there are only two options on the table. Either the Lebanese government takes real action to restrain Hezbollah, or Israel will use its strength to dismantle this terrorist organization. There are no other options. You know, we can meet and talk in Akora, wherever you want, but not while Hezbollah is sending missiles into Israel. So Israel is acting. In recent days, the IDF has struck Hezbollah command centers and military infrastructure across southern Lebanon. The IDF has also carried out strikes against assets of Al-Qard al-Qassam network, Hezbollah's financial system used to fund its terrorist activity and rebuild its military capabilities. We have issued evacuation notices to protect Lebanese civilians because we face an enemy that deliberately places them in harm's way. Hezbollah hides behind civilians in Lebanon and firing at civilians in Israel. Mr. President, believe me, Israel does not want to be operating inside Lebanon. But Israel will not accept rockets fired at our people. As we speak, the Iranian regime is losing. And like many failing regimes, it is lashing out at its neighbors across the region, indiscriminately attacking civilians. You will meet at 3 p.m. to discuss that. And its proxy, Hezbollah, is doing exactly the same to Israel. Many countries in our region have drawn the right conclusion. They are distancing themselves from Tehran, strengthening their defenses, protecting their sovereignty. Lebanon now faces that same choice. Israel will continue confronting the terror network built by Tehran, and we will do whatever is necessary to ensure that rockets and terror can no longer threaten our people. Thank you, Mr. President.